What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, guys, I've been telling you guys for a while now that this Talkin Tackle is going to be special, and we're going to start having special guests. So, in this episode of Talkin Tackle, the tackle that we're going to be talking about is the Wacky Rig. And our special guest today is going to be Mr. Alex Rudd Fishing. Let's get to it. Okay, so we're not actually live, but this is Mr. Alex Rudd, and I know you do your little thing. I know that's something I'm a fan of. Yeah, go ahead, introduce yourself. I'm happy to be here for you. Like I said, I'm new to this, so I appreciate the patience too. But
yeah, no,
take it
I'm
over.
glad to be on here with you. Yeah, I'm glad to be on here with you. For everybody that doesn't know me, my name is Alex Rudd. I own and operate the Alex Rudd Fishing YouTube channel and all the other social stuff that I do. I'm out there. I'm the big guy with the beard. I'm really hard to miss. But yeah, I mean, I love fishing. That's what I like to do. I mean, that's about it. I mean, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how anything else to really say about it. You know, it's the only thing I've ever done. It's the only thing that I've really ever truly like enjoyed and had a passion for like I do. And so yeah, I started growing a YouTube channel, started growing a social media empire, we'll call it, quote unquote, and just keep on working, keep on growing and
keeping the grind going.
Yeah, that's right. Just keep the dream alive. So yeah.
You got your mailing list too, which I'm actually a part of. I just got your recent one that I just got, so I'm actually a part of that too. Like I said, I'm a big fan. So for me, this is awesome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit before, and I know we have agreed that tonight we're going to be talking more in depth on the Wacky Rig itself, because you pretty much said that was one of your favorites to fish with, right?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, we can talk about it. I mean, I'm sure just like my live stream, we'll go down a rabbit hole about something. But yeah, we'll talk about the Wacky Rig tonight. It's a bait that I have taken a lot of time. Like, I'm not a big finesse guy by any means. I'm a power fisherman. I love to crank, I love to throw chatterbait, throw a frog, flip, that kind of stuff. But just being the way fishing is, especially here in East Tennessee where I'm from, and the way these lakes are going, you got to learn how to fish finesse.
Absolutely.
And so I told myself, I'm going to take a few techniques and I'm going to really, really learn them well so that I know how to use that tool. And so I already knew how to fish a shaky head. It's just like a staple. I used to be an old dragger like the rest of them and fish a shaky head. But then there was the Wacky Rig and the Ned Rig. And, eventually I had a drop shot in there just to satisfy my buddy, Mr. Benjamin Nowak. But like the Wacky Rig and the Ned Rig were the two for me that I thought I really want to learn this bait. And so the first one was the Wacky Rig that I really took a lot of time with. And I literally took an entire summer. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm a teacher, so I get my summers off.
Yeah. I
literally took an entire summer and I locked a Wacky Rig in my hand. And I went and figured out every little nuance of fishing a Wacky Rig. Okay. And so now I feel like I have figured out a system that works for me, and I always say that fishing is anecdotal. It's some of your experiences. And so all I can do is share my experiences with fishing the Wacky Rig.
Right.
And for me, it's been pretty successful. I've
heard really good things about it.
Yeah.
I've used it. I've had success with it, but as far as, the way I typically go, because for me, I've only been, really hardcore fishing probably for a good couple of years. So like, I'm still learning a lot. I still feel like a very, very new angler to all of it. So like when I use the Wacky Rig, I totally get the point. I use it. I've had a lot of great success, but I'm all about wanting to learn. Like you said, you've gone out, you spent, 3 solid months doing that. So that's something I probably should do. I'm probably going to end up doing something like that this year. It just seems like such a good rig to use.
Yeah. Oh, it is. And I think a lot of people, when you get into the little nuances of the bait, and start playing with different hooks and stuff. I mean, I've seen it happen where I can outfish somebody from the back of the boat with a Wacky Rig who's throwing a Wacky Rig in front of me because of just little different things. It's just something a little bit different. We always say that in fishing, but it is such the truth, especially when you're fishing. I know you're a bank angler and a lot of kayak anglers. So like when you're dealing with those situations, those are very pressured situations.
Yeah,
those are situations where those fish are going to see 1,000 of one thing.
Right.
And so having just the slightest difference in what you're doing can mean, having a good day on the water or going out there and, kicking rocks and being like, I don't want to quit fishing and sell everything.
Right. It can definitely just,
I mean?
Give you a bunch of skunk days in a row. I mean, that happens to the best of us, I feel like. So, I mean, as far as differences, what are some of the main differences? Like how do you actually rig it on the hook or,
Yeah. So we'll start. Actually, grabbed all my stuff before
I did too. That's funny. So this is one of those, we're just kind of playing by ear with this one. So I have a bunch of worms. I was looking and I was digging. I have the rings, but I don't know where they are because there was actually a technique that I haven't tried that I've heard good things about. And I think it was Debo. I'm not sure. I feel like it was one of his videos where I saw it, and you take two of the rings and you cross them over like this. So that way you have that main line so you can hook it that way. Like that, like the traditional style, but the extra protection.
Yeah. And I've kind of figured out, I'll show you. I got my Wacky Rig stuff.
Yeah.
Break it down.
Go for it.
But what I've found, so let's just go ahead and get on that vein of thought. So what I have found are these, which is, I don't know if we can see them. So it's medical tubing.
They're the tubes.
Yeah, the medical tubing. And you got to have like this little tool. I don't really know what this is called. And this is going to be funny because this is the truth. It looks like a gynecologist tool. I don't know what this thing is called. It's like a spreader, right?
It's like extra. It's like backwards pliers.
Yes, you need that. And so, and that's the funny thing is when somebody asks me what's that tool called, I'm like, I don't know.
VMC. I'm not sure how recent they are. They were one of the videos I've recently watched, and they actually have it all set up. And in the handles, they have a little pop-up thing. It goes in there so you can hold them.
Yeah.
So I've seen that.
But it's an interesting thing. And so what I've done is I've started using this medical tubing. And what I like about that medical tubing is a couple things. Number one, if you want to, you can rig it like that traditional wacky rig way. So instead of your hook being, perpendicular to the actual bait, it's going to be in line with the bait, right? Or vice versa. So you got your wacky rig, and let me get a wacky rig hook out.
You're good. I have it here.
We're going all out here.
We got to talk about the rods, the reels, the nitty gritty. So I got my rods here sitting.
We're about to geek out. We're
about to geek out. We're good. I'm good about that.
So the medical tubing allows you to, either rig it your traditional way or, that way where the hook's pointing out. Now, what I've found specifically with that medical tubing is that medical tubing being a lot more rigid and obviously, just being a thicker kind of material, actually rigging it your traditional way where that hook is going to be perpendicular to the bait actually makes my hookup ratio go down. Okay. And the reason that happens is normally when you hook a fish, that hook is going to, make its way under that thing, and then that worm's going to separate from that hook. And when that happens, that's like the ultimate scenario to be in as far as having a fish hook, because then they have zero leverage on you. It doesn't matter how much they come up and head shake, how much they jump, what they do. It is really hard for a fish to get something that small that's drove an inch into its mouth out of its mouth.
Yeah, it's like the perfect little place, Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're donezo. I mean, there's obviously this past year I lost a couple big fish on the wacky rig. I don't know what happened, but it's really hard for them to lose it. Get it for you to lose them that way. So what I do with that medical tubing is I use that medical tubing for a couple reasons. Number one is it's that thicker material, so it actually holds the bait together a lot longer. And so when you're fishing like a Yamamoto Cinco or what I'm fishing here, I love the Berkeley Generals, the Maxit Generals, which we'll get into this here in just a minute.
Yeah, you like the power baits.
Oh, I'm telling you. What it's going to do is it's going to hold that bait together a lot longer. I mean, it essentially acts like almost like a piece of tape. And so I have fished whole tournaments where I fished the same worm all day long and only retied. Wow. And so for me, even though, I'm sponsored by Berkeley, I can get as many generals as I want to. Right. I'm still thinking like in the vein of I
still want to conserve what I got.
Exactly. I've still got that like deal shopper mindset. Don't worry.
Absolutely. Just because I have them doesn't mean I don't want to waste them.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I love that medical tubing for that reason, is because number one, it allows me to conserve these baits. But then number two, if you're wanting to rig it that traditional way, you can run it right through there. You've got it through that piece of medical tubing, and it's going to be really, really hard, to lose these baits, for these baits to rip as easy. And then you kind of just get that benefit of being able to rig both directions, you know what I mean? And not lose your bait. So that's why I like the medical tubing. It's just one of those things that I tell you who turned me on to it was Benjamin Nowak, my buddy Benjamin. If you guys don't know him, go check out his channel. He's smallmouth killer. He lives up in Michigan. Dude, there you go. Epic. And but what this stuff is normally used for is Nikko rigging.
I was just gonna say too. I was gonna ask, because I know we're talking about the wacky rig, but obviously that's often past the paths with the Nikko rig. Something I was wondering specifically was with the Nikko rig. Is there a preference on the Nikko rig versus the wacky rig on how you prefer the hook? I know with the wacky rig, probably the traditional, you want it to lay
in line with the bait.
You go. Yeah, in line with it. With with a Nikko rig, do you prefer it the same way or do you prefer it differently?
So a Nikko rig for me, it's not something I throw a ton, but I do experiment with it. Again, it's one of those, hey, I bought all the parts. I've just got to get out there. I've caught fish on it, but it's not something like for Ben again. He's a freaking Nikko rig weirdo. Like he's weird about a Nikko rig like I am a wacky rig. But when it comes to a Nikko rig, with a bait, what you want to do is you want that hook point to be pointing up towards the tail of the bait. So you want it pointing the direction that the bait is going to be sitting, whatever's pointing towards the surface of the water. That's the way you want the hook setting. You want it kind of like that. Because if it's like this, what's going to happen is every single time you're going to hook those fish in the bottom of the mouth.
And that's never
just
fun.
A good way. Yeah, it's a good way to lose fish. Whereas if you got it like this, when they eat that bait, they come up behind it, the mouth closes down, you're going to stick that hook right up in the roof of their mouth every single time. Because that's really the optimal spot that you want to hook a fish. That's, the roof of their mouth is the hardest part of their mouth.
Right.
And normally if you can get a hook up in there, especially like a singular hook like this, again, it's going to be really hard for them to come off.
It ain't going to come out necessarily. Not easily. No. Not easily anyway.
No, that's right.
So is it?
Yeah,
go for it.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask if there was a specific, like similar to like with the drop shot. there's the technique after you do the polymer knot. If you do it that one, you make sure you run the line back through to make sure your hook stays parallel or stay upright. Is there a secret technique to make sure your hook stays that way, or?
No, it's just you just tie it on there and stick it through the worm. I mean, the worm's going to do all the work, right? Especially the hook, and that's kind of what I was going to get into next.
Yeah,
I actually use Nikko hooks. These are Nikko
same.
Like when you go to buy them, they're going to be called Nikko hooks.
Yep.
I would like to just call them a finesse hook because that's what they are, but it is a Nikko hook. But what makes them, what I like about them anyway, especially these Nikko hooks, is like your traditional finesse hook or drop shot hook is just essentially a round bend. It's just a U-shaped bend, which is good. Catch a lot of fish. I mean, John Cox has won millions of dollars on, a Berkeley Fusion hook like that.
Right.
What I like is this Nikko hook. And the reason for that is you go into the belly of that hook, you're going to see there's almost like a flat area in the bottom of that hook. And what that does, and what I've noticed is, you can hug that flat piece right up onto that worm, and that hook is going to set like that almost exclusively. I don't have one rigged up, but I can show you just while we're talking about it. And in unison with that medical tubing, that's where you get, it's where I found it to be the best. And I'll just go ahead and rig one up here because you can use and you got to find the right medical tubing too. I'll make sure and send you the size
that would be cool.
So that you can put it down in the description for people.
For sure.
But you can see once you get that medical tubing on there, and then you're going to take that hook and you're going to rig it up on there. That medical tubing almost acts kind of like almost like it just grabs right there, and it sits
like an exterior skin almost.
Yes, and it sits and it doesn't move in the belly. And that flatter part of that Nikko hook sits right in where that medical tubing, I mean, it's the perfect width for that medical tubing. And it sits there. And like you were saying, is there something special you do to keep the hook up? Well, that's it. I mean, once that's in there, it
sits that way.
I mean, you can sling that thing around and look, you barely get any movement, but the movement that you do get isn't back to the direction of the hook point and your barb. It's going to move in, and then it's going to allow that hook to pass through that worm to go up your line. You can serve your worm. You get that worm away from that hook, and you get a better hook into the fish. Because what I was talking about earlier with a bad hookup ratio, what I was noticing is when I hooked it that, more traditional way, where that hook is parallel or perpendicular. What's parallel? Yeah, parallel.
Right. I'm doing the same thing. It's cool. I'm dyslexic. Yeah. I totally understand.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a teacher and I get all jacked up. So, I mean, it is what it is. But what happens here is what I've noticed is a fish will grab this worm and they'll actually fold the worm up over the hook point. And I can't tell you how many fish that I've had it come back to me literally folded just like that right there.
Wow.
And like have that plastic like that, and I've missed the fish. Because when it's rigged like that traditionally, they're able to bite it and fold it, and it folds up on that hook point. Where when it's rigged your other direction, and then you can see here too, it's hard for that barb to come out. When it's rigged that other direction, when they come up and they collapse around it, that hook point is still exposed.
Now, see, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, now see, one of the videos that I've actually recently watched on the Wacky Rig, they talked, it was literally like the exact opposite view, which you're going to have, people who are going to have it one view, and then you're going to have somebody who's the exact opposite about it. Yeah. So the way that you prefer to have it, the way he said almost the exact same thing happened to him with his hookup ratio when it's going that way. I almost want to, grab one out myself since we're, grabbing our parts and geeking out about it. So these are just... So you like to hang in, I don't have a hook handy like that, but so you like to have the hook going this way. So what he said, when they come up, when they come up to grab it, is that it literally does the same exact thing, and it comes back this way and hooks on there. And therefore it makes it harder for the bass to actually make a hook up on that because of the extra worm there. So it's kind of interesting when you hear different perspectives about it, I'm not the pro on it, so I'm not sure on that one. So that's interesting to hear different perspectives like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's anecdotal, right? Like it's some of your experiences. I mean, and that's it right there.
That's it.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's for me, and I think a lot of it has to do with that medical tubing. Probably. I may think completely differently if I was using like a traditional band. And I didn't use the traditional bands long. I went straight to the medical tubing after Ben showed it to me. And that medical tube, I mean, it's just slick. It's different. I mean, like
it just makes all the difference.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much force at all, like just to push that right out of there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, and it's separating from the bait. So I don't know. I mean, I tell people experiment with everything, right? Play with everything. Figure out what works for you. Because I'll tell you another thing that I've seen is how you set the hook on a fish. I mean, like if you're, there's people who set it straight up. There's people sweep it. There's people reel set it. I think that can make a difference too. But just for me, in my experiences, rigging it like that with that medical tubing, with that Nikko style hook that's got that, that little bit flatter belly in there. I mean, it is just one of those things that little combination of things right there, I have put more fish into the boat and lost a lot less fish than my experimentation up to the point of getting to here.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now looking at the hooks, I fished 2 different hooks. Same brand. It's an owner sniper.
Okay.
I love Berkeley. I've obviously worked with Berkeley, sponsored by Berkeley, but Fusion does not yet make a Nikko hook that I like. And so I'll still go out and buy my own owners. So this is an owner. This is the Nikko sniper hook. I fish a number 1 size, and then I fish a number or a 1/0 size.
Okay.
And the reason that I do that is rate of fall. And it has everything to do with rate of fall. I mean, so you can see that's not that big of a difference.
No, they really aren't that, when you have to really, like, if you look at a hook size by size, you really can't see a difference. It's got to be like 3 or 4 sizes to see the biggest difference, I feel like. So,
yeah. The biggest difference with this is that gauge and that gauge is completely different. This is a lot heavier gauge hook, and it's just beefier. And so obviously this is going to add a little bit more weight to it. And so when I'm wanting a situation where I'm wanting that wacky rig to fall a little bit faster, or if I'm even fishing a little bit deeper water, because a lot of people think wacky rig's like a 2 to 5 foot bait. Okay. I've found situations around me, especially like highland reservoirs, deep clear lakes, where I turn that thing into a 10 to 12 foot bait.
And it's because your hook's heavier, so it's probably it's falling at a faster rate than the traditional, because people just don't have the patience necessarily to wait for a traditional wacky rig to fall that far. Makes sense.
And I'm that person. Like, I don't have that much patience. Like, so I was like, I'm going to beef up the hook and let it get down there where it needs to go.
Makes sense.
And so that's really it. You know, I got 2 different size hooks. They're the same hook, just different sizes, different gauges, just to make that wacky rig fall a little bit faster or a little bit slower, depending on the situation that I'm fishing in. And honestly, to just kind of rule of thumb and almost, you know, generalize it, that number 1 size, when I'm in that 2 to 5 foot range, that 1/0 when I'm fishing anything over 5 foot, just so it's going to fall a little bit faster, get down there to where I need it at. But I love that Nico hook. It is something. Owner knocked it out of the park with that little dude. It is a sticky mug. I
honestly didn't even ever really start out with a wacky rig hook or whatever, because it was almost overwhelming on how many people said Nico hook, go with a Nico hook. It's better to go with a Nico hook. So like I legitimately just started there, because it would be kind of like, you know, you hear everybody say go one way, and then you try to be like, nah, I could try it out, but I feel like the Nico rig was, you know, like I said, it was overwhelming with how many people prefer the Nico rig. The Nico hook, I'm sorry. What about a weighted wacky rig? Do you do that at all, or?
No, I don't. No. My dad loves a weighted wacky rig.
Yeah.
He loves it. He's way more impatient than I am, and I think that's why. But I know people who fish. I just prefer, for me, and what I've found is I get a lot more bites on a weightless wacky rig.
Okay.
I really let the bait do all of the work, because what I've noticed with a weighted wacky rig is that you can kill the actions of certain baits, depending on the plastic that you pick up. Especially like these generals, because the general is going to be, it's what I'm going to refer to 10,000 times, you know, in this video that we're doing.
Yeah.
But like a general, the action gets killed on a weighted wacky rig hook for me. And so I don't like it. I also like an unweighted wacky rig just because it is more finesse. Wacky rig's finesse,
right?
But that unweighted wacky rig, when I really just let it do its thing, I can't tell you how many fish that I've got to bite that thing, just throwing it in there, and you're just like, okay, let it.
I have to have patience.
It's like you're itching your nose and you're picking your butt. And
right,
just
getting
like
on
everything,
your phone, doing something, trying to stay distracted. Like, okay, how do I not pull this in right now?
Yes. You'll be sitting there doing something, and that thing's just fluttering down through there, or the current gets it a little bit, it starts fluttering, and then that line and they got it. And especially for me, I'm fishing a lot of pressure water. I'm fishing a lot of clear water, a lot of river water. There's a lot of the wacky rig stuff that I do. I'm river fishing, and those fish can get so finicky that as soon as you put any kind of weight on that bait, they're done with it. Like it's falling too fast. It's too aggressive. I don't know what it is that they're seeing, but they don't like it. And so I've just found that if you want to optimize the bites that you get on the wacky rig, fish it weightless, because you're going to let that wacky rig do exactly what it's supposed to do, which is just get that wiggle and get
it in there and let it do itself. So, okay. So we said it's a finesse. We talked about it being a finesse rig. So let's get on to do you use a spinning rod like normal, or do you do it with a spinning rod?
Yep.
Do you have a specific length rod? Oh, you got your combo chilling right there too. Nice. You're prepared.
Oh yeah. I'm telling you. So I got a Ned rig on here right now, but this is literally like my general purpose
go-to.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of spinning rods out there, and I play with a bunch of different stuff. I think it's what people don't understand is working with Abu, I get to use a bunch of stuff. And so I just use it all because I just want to use it all, because I can. But my go-to is just a 7-foot medium fast action spinning rod. This is a Veritas PLX, and I got it paired up with a 300 size spinning reel. This is a Zeta with 20-pound braid as my main line with a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader.
10-pound fluoro?
Yeah. And literally, that I use this for every finesse application that you could imagine. Like anything that's under 3/16 of an ounce, I'm using this for that. It's spy baits, Ned rigs, wacky rigs, Nico rigs. Like if you throw it on a spinning rod, that's what I'm gonna be throwing it on.
What'd you say your line of your braid pound was?
This is 20-pound braid
20 pound.
to a 10-pound main line. And the reason I go 20 is because I have found that the 20-pound braid is almost the same diameter as the 10-pound fluorocarbon. And so when you're tying your connection knot, you're going to get a tighter knot.
It's similar
overall. And it's very small. It's very compact. And so you're not going to have to worry about that knot fraying and all that kind of stuff, getting it through the guides and all that.
Nice.
And then the knot that I use as a connection knot is just a uni to uni. just your straight up uni, nothing special.
Simple, yeah.
Yeah, 7 wraps on one, 7 wraps on the other, and knock her down. And I mean, I've caught 7 pound smallmouth on that knot, and I've caught,
that's like funny too, because I was gonna ask you, because you said you did the braid to fluoro leader. I was gonna ask you what your preference on knot was there too, because you run into, there's different knots that people use. I use the uni knot, the uni knot as well. It seems to be one of the more simpler ones to just be able, and it's strong and it's effective, so why not?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I've never, knock on wood, I've never had that knot break on me up to this point. I mean, I've had the fluorocarbon break in front of the knot, and I've actually had the braid break behind the knot.
Wow.
But I've never had the knot itself, like pop out. So yeah, I mean, I'm so utilitarian when it comes to a lot of my fishing. I'll get really geeked out and hyper specific about certain things, but for the most part, like when it comes to rods and reels and lines, like, this is a $200 setup. I mean, it's not like, and when I worked with the other company I worked with, I was fishing a $100 setup. I mean, it's nothing that you can't go out and get, what I mean? And
that almost goes back to when we were talking about, even though you have like a lot of the same baits, you just don't want to waste them. So it's almost like, even though you want an affordable, you still want it to be affordable almost. I'm the same way. I don't want to go over and above, because I just don't see the purpose on it. So it's like affordability is kind of key, especially with fishing. You go through so much tackle and gear, like it's not even funny. So it's like affordability is key.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, and I tell this, and here's a good rabbit hole to go down right here. What's cool about fishing rods and reels, and what a lot of people don't realize, is that at the point that we're at in the fishing industry, these rod and reel companies are recycling technology. And so essentially what they'll do is that they will take the technology from the $300 reel the year before, and they'll put it in the $200 reel. Yep. And then the $200 reel goes to the $100 reel, and so on and so forth down the line. Right. And so what people have to realize is that this $99 PLX rod is the best of the best technology from like 3 years ago or 2 years ago.
So it's still a great rod. It's like, yeah.
I mean, like my iPhone is now 2 years old. It still works.
Right.
Like,
it's still great.
It will continue to work. Yeah, it's still great.
Yep.
And so that's what I think a lot of people need to realize. Like, yeah, if you want to go spend a tremendous amount of money on gear, it's your money. Go spend that money.
Do what you do.
I love
not my business.
But like a $300 spinning reel in 2 to 3 years will be a $99 spinning reel. Right. And so just keep that in mind. Like $99 things, $79 things are good. Now, will they last you 15 years? Probably not.
Right.
Maybe they will.
It depends on the brand, quality,
Yeah. And I also I always tell people too, like, how does you got to look at it from the stance of like, how long are you going to be on the water? Like, your traditional angler, your weekend warrior guy, he's going to be on the water maybe if he's lucky 2 weeks out of the month, 3 weeks out of the month.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? So he's going to be using a piece of gear 30 times in a year.
Right.
And then you got like crazy dudes like me who's going to use a piece of gear 150 times in a year. And then you've got pros and guys who are going to use a piece of gear 300 times in a year.
Right.
Yeah. And so like, you got to kind of gauge that, what is the thing worth to you and how much are you going to use it?
Yeah.
And there's like a nice middle ground there of money spent and the amount of use you're going to get out of it.
Right. So, right.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. Now, I'm not sure here. I've never, like I said, I haven't done this. So I don't know. I know at one point it said this was a 30-minute meeting. I don't know if Zoom does more than 45 minutes of recording. So I'm not sure if it'll just like cut off. And if it does, maybe we can come back. I don't know. So this is going to be just like the fun experimenting part. That's what I write a script, but it kind of tends to stay in my head a little bit, and I'm ADHD too. So I like going all over the place. I like going down into the nitty gritty rabbit holes though. I think it's easy to focus in on that. I'm trying to think of, other things to cover on the Wacky Rig. Cause we've gone into the reel, the rod, we've gone into, do you have, that was one. Do you have a specific plastic, not necessarily a name brand? You've been talking about that, so I'm guessing that would be your specific one. You kind of answered a lot of the questions as we went along, but so what's your preference on why a stick bait versus a trick worm or something rather, like why a stick bait?
So like your traditional, your 5-inch stick bait, right? the reason I picked this bait, and to get down to like the simplest form of it, is that bait is designed for wacky rigging.
Yep.
It's loaded with salt, so it's going to sink. And that's the thing is like, you know, when you start talking about salt and you start talking about different additives to your plastic, yeah, it may make them weaker and it may make them not last as long, but it's what's going to make it sink.
Yeah.
And so that's why, you know, I pick like your traditional 5-inch stick style bait. Now, the one that I prefer, again, Berkley Max Scent in general.
Of course.
This freaking thing, I'm going to be totally candid, and I've tried to be totally candid about this, but people don't often believe me. Okay. Like, because they're like, you get paid. And I'm like, yes, I do. But I also believe in the thing. If I didn't, I wouldn't throw it.
Absolutely. See, I agree with that completely. You know, it's like, why would I be here if I didn't agree with why, if I didn't like it so much, why would I be here?
Exactly. So the Max Scent technology is fascinating to me.
Okay.
And the reason it's fascinating to me is the first kayak tournament that I ever won, I was still working with Strike King when I won it. And I was throwing that bait right there.
Nice.
I was throwing a 5-inch Berkley Max Scent General in Junebug. Nice. That's what I won the tournament on. And ever since then, the Max Scent thing has fascinated me, especially after you watch all these guys win on it. You hear all this, you know, hoopla about it. But the thing about this bait is I can't tell you how many times that I have outfished people in the back of the boat throwing Max Scent, or how many more bites that I know I got because of Max Scent.
Right.
And the Max Scent technology is fascinating. I'm sure people that, you know, follow me, and obviously you follow me, so you've heard me talk about it. Yeah. I had John, the biologist, on, and he was talking about that they're starting to do, and this blew my mind, that they're starting to do, they're starting to do studies that show bass can actually smell the caloric value of the prey item that they're going to eat.
I was just about to bring that up because I wanted you to go in depth on that. So that's just one of those other like questions I'm getting answered on that. I watched your video about that and I was fascinated, and I was like, it was kind of like you said it. And then I was kind of like, I need to know more about that because I'm fascinated with the fact that I'm glad they're studying bass more. That's great because it's, you know, it's good for us, you know, and figuring out what to get. And you were dead set on that Max Scent because of those studies that are being done.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I mean, not only are they doing like, you know, state run studies and like your DNR is doing studies, but then also the people over at Berkeley. The people over at Berkeley are leading a lot of that science around bait technology and scent technology. And obviously they've figured out something in Max Scent that makes fish want to bite it. And so I don't know I don't know how this works. That's one of the things a lot of people are like, how does it work? I don't know, because it's one of the most heavily guarded secrets in all of the fishing industry.
Absolutely.
Like,
and
they're not going to divulge. Yeah.
You know, they've earned that. They deserve it. You know, I mean, why would you?
And so, I mean, my only guess is obviously like a Max. If you've ever messed with a Max Scent plastic, it is not plastisol. It's not your traditional plastic bait. It is a completely different material. Mm-hmm. And that scent, I think, and we can kind of get into this because I think this is super important. The scent isn't on the bait; it's in the bait.
Right. Okay.
So, like with your, you know, like with scent, normally it's like, you know, you get those greasy plastics out, and it's like grease. Well, it's an oil base. Well, you ever heard the saying oil and water, they don't mix.
They don't mix. It's not good.
As soon as you put that plastic in the water, I'm not saying that there obviously isn't some in the plastic. There's a lot of good plastic brands out there. I mean, I'm not saying that. But as soon as that oil that's all over that bait hits the water, it's going to separate from that bait. Right. And you're not going to have that scent in there. Whereas with this Max Scent technology, it's soaked into the bait. It is a chemical reaction that when it hits the water, there is a scent cloud that starts to disperse around the space. Yes.
That's fascinating.
Like those, you know, like commercials that you see where that bait goes in the tank and there's like that red cloud that goes around it.
Yeah.
Like that really happens with this. It's just, we can't see it. And so like, I think I kin it a lot to the fact, like, you know, when you walk into the movie theater and you smell that popcorn, you're like, oh yeah, it's popcorn time.
And it's like when it hits the fish's nose, it's like,
yeah, and that's what these studies, you know, I've talked to some people that I can't really dive a lot into the, you know, details of the conversation just because. But
I got you.
I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people where they're doing studies where they're dropping certain smells into tanks with bass, and I'm talking like small, you know, amounts of it, you know, just couple.
To see.
just to see, and they're having bass that as soon as it hits the water, those bass are turning and reacting to that smell.
Wow.
And so what I think we're going to see over the next few years, especially in bass studies and bass science, is that bass can smell a lot more than we think they can.
Seems like it for sure. I definitely think so. It just makes sense. I mean, why else would everybody be so adamant about scents as much? I don't know, maybe, but I'm fascinated with this new studies. I'm happy that they're doing it, like I said, because it's just gonna open a lot of eyes for a lot of anglers, I feel like.
Oh yeah. And so that's why I use max scent. I mean, max scent, it's not only an anecdotal experience, but there's actually some like true blue hard data to back up. Like when they put a percentage on the front of the pack, like they really mean that. Like it is based by thousands upon thousands upon thousands of data points that they have to back up the statement. And I think that's what's fascinating more than anything is like, follow the science. Well, here's your science. Like follow this science. They
back up their bark. Yeah. That's cool.
Right.
That's awesome.
So that's why I choose that bait in particular, and then that's why I choose a stick bait. I mean, a stick bait is made for wacky rigging, and I've experimented with different stuff. I've experimented with trick worms. I've experimented with big worms like bull worms. I've experimented with all kinds of stuff, and day in, day out, year in, year out, what I get the most bites on is just going to be that traditional
good old stick bait.
And I think just a lot of it has to do with it's thin, it's small, it's passive, it's not aggressive. It looks like it's wounded. I mean, it's everything the bass wants. A bass doesn't want to work super hard for its meal. And so when this thing is, just shimmying down through the water column, I mean, they don't have to work very hard.
Easy meal.
Easy meal.
That makes sense. So have you ever thought of any other plastics or anything like that, or just strictly a worm, stick bait? And I asked that because, a swim bait or something like that, it's one of those things that enters my mind is when you think of a wounded fish, what about some sort of like a fluke style bait or something? What about something different?
So I actually have played around with flukes, but just fishing it like a fluke. You know what I mean? Like the thing with your flukes is they don't have that shimmy. They don't have that. That's where you get into a lot of problems with a lot of different kinds of play. Obviously, like a swim bait or something, it's going to have that tail kicking. Yeah. But then that tail kicking, depending on the situation that you're in, it isn't going to sink right. It's not going to do what it's supposed to do. That hook's going to drag it down, but it's going to be such a slow fall. And it's going to twist your line and stuff like that. I mean, you can play with swim baits and stuff like that. Yeah. But like, that's why a lot of these plastics, I've played with them, but I've just learned that they don't work as well for a variety of different reasons. Whether it's not enough salt, they were never meant to be rigged that way, stuff like that. Now, one I have played with, and this is something that this coming year, I'm going to spend a lot more time on, is that gilly. A new Berkeley gilly. Oh,
the Berkeley gilly. I'm getting something. I'm trying to remember the name brand. Something. I'm going to have to look now.
ISSEI or whatever was the original one. It's a Japanese company, but the Berkeley gilly, the little gilly, Mike Cacanelli's made 6,000 videos about it. God bless. That thing, I don't know if I'm going to wacky rig it per se, but I definitely am going to fish it weightless on a wacky rig style hook and play with it. Because I don't know yet. I've played with it in the pool.
You just got to experiment. You have like a visual in your mind of how you think something's going to look and work. And so you want to just kind of see if it matches up here,
Yeah. And I'll be, we'll break a little news here. I guess would be the best way to say this.
There we go.
I have played with it and I have caught some big ones on it. And it's interesting. It's very interesting. And I still have to play with it more before I really put it all out there and explain it to people how I'm doing it. But what I've been doing is just hooking it through the nose like you would hook a literal live bluegill. And when you do that and you throw it out there, that the weight of that hook is just enough to pull that thing down. And it actually like rolls. It'll go out and then it'll catch and it'll roll back and it'll catch and it'll roll back. And it has just a very weird, almost unique, like helicopter. Yeah, it's helicoptering. And what it looks like is a dying bluegill. Like I've seen bluegills that get just like, hammered by a bass.
Yeah.
And they're like, they go up and they're like twitch and then they'll kind of die off, and then they'll twitch, and then they'll die off. And that gilly does that weightless. And
that's cool.
That's what I've experimented with. I'm not really dove super deep into it, but enough that it interests me. You know what I mean?
So. Yeah. No, I always, I'm always looking at different actions. That's actually, I pulled out, have you heard of the Yoda Worm?
I have heard of the Yoda Worm.
So
yeah,
this is one of those newer ones. These are, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
That's the 10,000 fish ones?
Yeah, it's 10,000 fish. It's a Yoda Worm. This is actually their smaller one. They have two different sizes. I think I'm a bigger fan of the bigger ones just because it has, better action on it. But when we were talking about, just different actions and the action on a Yoda Worm, to me, has a very similar action to a dying bait fish, like you said. And it has that action, and it's becoming one of my more favorite ones. I'm experimenting with it more because it is, newer looks and things like that they're playing with. But I'm excited to try that one out more. I've caught fish on it. I've used it all throughout. I actually used it a lot last year. I never dead set, just to it, and I really want to do that. But I remember there were times where I threw it out multiple times, and first, second cast on a weightless, they caught it, and it was they have a bluegill pattern that I like. It has like a kind of like a pearlescent bottom and then like a grayish blue top. And it just, that was one of my favorite colors too. It seems to just get the attention. So I like messing around with newer baits that have that new, I don't know, intuitive designs to them that they just, are bringing out. They're fun to play with and experiment. It's just, I think that's a tackle junkie's dream in that sense.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's what we do. We play with stuff. I mean, we're like big kids in the candy store.
That's what we're good for. Right.
Right.
It's easy. It's easy to spend money on fishing gear. I can tell you that.
Oh yeah. Oh, I still do. That's one funny thing is like Bethany all the time. She's like, how are you sponsored by a company, but we still need to go buy stuff? I'm like, because I don't know. It's just this thing, I need this extra thing. And she's like, no, you don't.
Covered.
It's like, but I do. But I do. It's fun.
Yeah, man, Alex, it's been a lot of fun. I don't want to cut it off. I could keep going with you for sure. I just feel like the timing on the Zoom call is actually gonna cut off on us here, and I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. I'm just trying not to get cut off. I do need to probably go into it more as far as I know you use StreamYard. I'm probably going to look more into that one because I know you have to I think you have to pay for that one in order to get like the actual live recording or something like that. I'm not sure. Yeah. But this was like the easiest go-to tonight. And I really appreciate it, man. I've had a great time. And I look forward to it. I want to do it more in the future for sure. So it's been a lot of fun. Is there anything else that you wanted to go into with the Wacky Rig, or you got good coverage on it?
I think we're good. I mean, if anybody has any questions, just make sure and leave them down in the comment section. When you put out this video, I'll go down there and look around. I mean, don't be afraid to throw it. Go out there, be patient with it. Let that inner ADHD crack driven squirrel calm down a little bit, and fish that that's me. I mean, like I am like a squirrel on crack. I'm like 55 different targets. But I mean, if you take your time, and really fish this thing, especially like really hot, months of the year, those times when it gets hard to catch fish.
Yeah.
You'll have some fun with it. And so,
that's a quick question. I did want to, what's your favorite seasons? I'm sorry. Yeah. What are your favorite seasons? I didn't even think about that.
Pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn.
There you go.
That's it. All the way back down around into the fall. Obviously, I had a lot of success with it in the fall. But I mean, anything pretty much pre-spawn, when that water 55 plus, like 55 degrees plus. And I'll tell you one thing, a lot of people, you hear them say they're in that funk right before the spawn.
Yeah.
That'll get them out of the funk really quick.
Okay.
That is the funk. That's the funk buster for me. So.
All right. Yeah. I love I've always heard when you're having a hard time, wacky rig it out. That's just the way to go on a hard day. So.
That's right.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up because, like I said, I know we could keep going on. I know we could, but I don't want to get cut off. I appreciate it. I really do. Like I said, I hope to do it soon again in the future. We'll have to figure out another rig, or we can just chit chat. We'll figure it out. But thanks again. Go give Alex Rudd Fishing. Right. That's right. On all the handles. Right. Instagram, YouTube.
Yep.
All the above. But yeah, all right, Alex, I will talk to you soon. I appreciate it so much, man.
Yep. Appreciate you too. It's good to talk to you.
Good talking to you. I'll see you later.
Bye.
See ya. All right, guys, there you go. That was so much fun, Alex. I appreciate it so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, turn on all your notifications. Go give Alex a follow if you're not already following the man. He is great. He's a wonderful educator, and you know, I've learned a lot from him. So I'm you know, almost fangirling about having him on the show itself. So anyway, guys, you guys know how it goes. If we're out there fishing, we are out there catching, and we are out there having these little interviews with some of the coolest people ever. No complaints. So I put the Gumby toy on the back of the dog, and it went all the way to him, on him, from the couch to the stairs. Let's see how long this Gumby's going. Puppy, Sheeman, let's go upstairs. Oh, he saw Gumby. Oh, now he's still distracted. Oh.
Get him.
Get him. Get the Gumby.
Get Gumby.
Get him. There he is.
Good boy.
Take him upstairs.
Good man.
Showy boy.